Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Friday. Hope your week went well and you're ready for the weekend. Hope your plans are probably involve a lot of indoor activities because it's going to be cool. Alec Lasley, speaking of cold, Alec Lasley joins us now from thehoosier.com. How are you doing, sir?
Doing well. How are you doing?
Lovely. Having a little sip of coffee this day.
Absolutely.
Enjoying this cold, frigid weather.
Yeah, needed on a cold day like today.
High of 23 degrees in Bloomington. I do not know what the high expected is in West Lafayette. But it doesn't matter. Thank goodness the game is going to be here. Purdue coming into Simon Scott Assembly Hall as the number one ranked team in the country for the first time ever. In this, these teams have played 216 times. Never has Purdue been the number one ranked team in this matchup. And it's certainly never happened at Simon Scott Assembly Hall.
Well, yeah, this is only the third time since 2000 that both teams have been ranked. So, I mean, that just kind of shows you kind of where this has been the last 20 some odd years, right? I mean, Indiana kind of dominated the first 10, 12 years of that. And then obviously we know what's happened, the last 8 or 9 years outside of the game in Assembly Hall last year. So, it's what this rivalry should be, right? Two teams battling near the top of the Big Ten. Obviously, Purdue with a firm lead on the Big Ten at the moment. Indiana, that loss against Maryland kind of slid them down a little bit earlier this week. But still two teams who not only have, Sweet 16 aspirations, but winning the Big Ten, going a little bit further. And it's something that you haven't had in this rivalry for quite some time. So I think obviously there's always going to be a great atmosphere for this game. But I think this year is going to be even heightened a little bit with what's at stake. Obviously, Purdue coming in, like you said, ranked number one in the country, but I think both teams just ranked in general is going to bring a little bit more. Not that this rivalry was never great, right? But over the last decade, it wasn't much of a rivalry. So I think it's going to bring a little bit more validity to outside of the state what this game truly means, not only to Indiana, but just to college basketball in general.
Yeah, Indiana's last win over a number one ranked team, I said January. It was actually February 2nd of 2013 when they knocked off the Michigan Wolverines. But that was all the way back in 2013 when Indiana was going for a Big Ten championship. And they were ranked. Was that the same season, I'm wondering, or the other season? But either way, Indiana has a great opportunity, not only for a great resume win, obviously a great rivalry win, but just a great win, period. And to show that they're not a fluke. I mean, obviously they're not a fluke, but Purdue is a team that is beatable. We've seen them in games against Nebraska and Ohio State and Michigan State escape. And that's what good teams do. They find a way to win, but they are absolutely beatable. Indiana just has to do what they need to do. It's not much to do with Purdue other than Zach Edey is going to be Zach Edey. He's going to be a problem.
Yeah, he is, right? I mean, I think, we talked to Mike Whitson yesterday, and he pretty much said, Zach Edey is going to get his. There's not really a team this year that's been able to even slow him down much at all. So it comes down to, what Indiana is going to be able to do guarding the perimeter. Two freshman guards in Fletcher Lawyer and Braden Smith. I think both have played exceptionally well and kind of way above what the expectation was for both of them coming in. Fletcher Lawyer's kind of been that wingman to Zach Edey for most of the season. Still a freshman, though, so does have his inconsistencies. Scored in single digits in, I think, 4 out of the last 5 games. So, he's a guy who can get hot in a hurry, though, from beyond the arc. And if he's able to start hitting along with Braden Smith, that's going to cause a lot of problems for this Indiana defense because, they're already banged up in the front court. We don't know what's really going to happen with Jordan Geronimo and or Logan Duncombe. So those are 2 bodies that may not be on the floor. And you have a hobbled Race Thompson. So, there's not a lot of depth in that front court right now to go up against Zach Edey. So if you're not going to be able to double down or at least hedge and show some sort of relief to that post defender, it's going to be a long day. And I think that's the one thing that you can't have happen is one of those two guards really get hot early. But for the most part, I think Trayce Jackson-Davis and Zach Edey are going to neutralize each other. Trayce Jackson-Davis has struggled against this Purdue size in the past, but I do think with the way that he's been playing and his ability now to not only pass the ball out of double teams, which he had struggled with coming into this season, that opens up not only his game, but this entire offense. And I don't think you're going to see as many doubles from any of the wings or any of the other post defenders for Purdue. So I think you're going to see a lot of Zach Edey and Trayce Jackson-Davis almost offsetting each other, and that's when it comes down to guard and perimeter play. And both teams have been inconsistent at best with that, especially Indiana, and they need some guys to step up on the wing if they want to not only keep this one close, in my opinion, but in order to obviously come away with the win.
Absolutely. I talked about the keys to this is it's not just going to be this. Everyone's going to be watching Trayce and Zach Edey, but there's going to be so much more going on around them that is actually going to be probably the telltale sign of winning this game. The other night, Purdue had 9 3-pointers from Mason Gillis. Well, but you get 9 threes from somebody, you're going to win a lot of games. I don't care who you got in the paint. And you've got these other freshmen I talked about. Indiana needs to put pressure on those guys. They're still freshmen. They're still apt to potentially making mistakes. They're playing in an environment like they've never played in before. And so you have to do what you can to try to disrupt their offense before they can get set, before they can get it in and let Zach Edey take care of you all day.
Yeah, and that's going to be a key, right? I mean, this is the biggest game that these guys have played in, probably in their 20 some odd games in their freshman season, and it's going to be probably one of the best environments they do play in throughout their entire college careers, especially this year with kind of what's at stake and what we talked about at the start here. So I think it's a critical first 4 to 5 minutes for a guy like Trey Galloway, guy who pretty much relishes in that role of being that lockdown defender and takes on all of that responsibility, but also loves to go off of the crowd and go off the atmosphere. Sometimes gets a little bit too amped up for big games like this. And especially early on, you cannot have him pick up 1 or 2 quick early fouls, which he's been accustomed to at times. He needs to be on the floor for the majority of this game, not only defensively, but because of his ability to drive and kick or drive and score at the rim, which when he is off the floor, takes away a lot from this offense, especially if Jalen Hood-Schifino is not going to be hitting at the rate that he was maybe a couple games ago, right? I mean, he struggled the last 4 games. You take away that Ohio State game, he's really struggled to shoot the ball, shooting about 30% from the field. So, if he's not going to be on the way that he was, there has not been a lot of Tamar Bates as of late, right? So I think a lot of it's going to come down to Trey Galloway on both ends of the floor, and he needs to stay on the floor, and that's a key. We saw him get in foul trouble against Maryland, and we saw that offense and that press break and that zone offense really struggle because there was such a lack of penetration and aggressiveness attacking the defense. And that's what he does best when this offense kind of gets into a lull. So he needs to be on the floor, and he needs to stay active without fouling, which is something obviously we know this Indiana team has really struggled with, but especially Trey Galloway at times going into big time guard matchups like this one.
And that with Jalen Hood-Schifino, we're going to have 3 out of the 4 freshmen, or 3 out of the 4 guards, starting guards, are going to be freshmen. I don't know that that's ever happened in this series. Doesn't happen in a lot of series, but that's going to be a telltale sign of which freshmen are playing better. And you would certainly think that Jalen Hood-Schifino is going to be a lot more comfortable in Simon Scott Assembly Hall at home, and hopefully that can help get him back on track, because the performance against Maryland was man, you cannot win a game when your point guard is doing that. So
Well,
they
yeah,
have
you can't win a game when he's doing that. Yes, but you also can't win a game when you don't get anything from those perimeter players. I mean,
oh
obviously
no,
Trey
it wasn't
Galloway was
just
in
him.
foul
It
trouble.
wasn't just him.
Tamar Bates really struggled. Miller Kopp struggled to hit. So again, this is if he is going to be off, which again he's a freshman. I think we look at what he did. Right when Xavier Johnson got hurt up until, about a week ago, and the performances that he had game in and game out, right? Which I think, he raised that level of expectation for him even more than what he had. And so if he has a couple off games, which he's allowed to, and like Mike Woodson said against Maryland, just some nights are not yours. The shots just aren't going to fall. That's when you need some of those guys who have been there before, like a Miller Kopp, like a Trey Galloway, even a Tamar Bates, who's now been there, for 2 years. To be able to take some of that responsibility and some of that at least scoring punch off of Jalen Hood-Schifino, because he still needs to stay on the floor as the true main ball handler and penetrator for this offense. And yeah, he struggled shooting the ball against Maryland, but I still thought he did a very good job of getting to his spots in the paint. They just weren't falling, right? So, I mean, he only took 2 threes. It would be a lot different if he wasn't being that aggressive Jalen Hood-Schifino at getting into the paint and trying to create than what he was. So, I still think, as bad as that shooting performance was, it wasn't as bad when you kind of look into the not only the box score, but you look into what he did in the game. He rushed a few things in the paint, but he was getting to his spots, and as long as he's doing that consistently, he's going to score more oftentimes than not.
And I know a lot of people on here think that I just rip on Miller Kopp too much, but this is exactly why and exactly what I talk about. That last game, where is he? He's a senior. So you're putting all this pressure on all these guys that are all younger than you are. He's got to step up, in my opinion, and especially in a game like Maryland when nothing was falling. They couldn't throw in the ocean from a boat. So that's where he needs to step up. He did take 7 shots at least, which surprised me. But regardless, they're going to have it from not just him. They're going to have Tamar Bates has to have a good game. He has to play well. They have to focus on defense. Race Thompson has to play smart. Malik Renew is going to have to be very careful not to get into foul trouble anytime he gets around the big guy, because that's been obviously an Achilles heel for Malik, and he's been playing very, very well. His last 3 games, he's averaging 10 points a game. Trey Galloway, his last 5 games, he's averaging 9 points a game. That's why I'd like to see him shoot it more. He's averaging 67% from 3 on 8 of 12 shooting from behind the arc right now, and 54% overall. He just needs to stay confident and keep shooting the ball. Get it to those guys and let them put it up.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the key there for Malik Renew is staying out of foul trouble. I doubt you're going to see him much on Zach Edey, because that's a matchup destined to fail. I think everyone pretty much knows that. Malik Renew's a physical player, but he's physical in the way of fouling, and Zach Edey draws 7 fouls a game, which is one of the highest rates in the country, and doesn't pick up many fouls. And Malik Renew lives and dies by fouls. Let's be frank, right? On the offensive end, he can draw a decent amount of fouls, but if he's not, he tends to miss those around the rim. And then on the flip side, right, he struggles defensively to be consistent from possession to possession. And I think, especially if whether or not it's Caleb First or Mason Gillis, I think that's a much, much, much better matchup for Malik Renew and that versatility that he has to at least, because First and Gillis are not going to be effective drivers for the most part. They may have a couple drives here and there, but that's not their game. Much different than Adante Scott for Maryland, who absolutely ripped apart Indiana's 4s on Tuesday. That's a much, much different matchup and a much better one for Indiana against Purdue here at that 4 spot. Now it's just, again, you need Race Thompson of old in order to do something in that front court on the defensive end, especially if you're not going to have the extra bodies in a Jordan Geronimo or a Logan Duncombe even that you could throw in there for a few minutes. So, it's very critical that Race Thompson plays much stronger on the defensive end than he has since he's pretty much been back from that knee injury. He hasn't shown a whole lot on either side of the ball since that injury, which, I mean, is to be expected. I think a lot of people expected him to be out a lot longer than what he actually was. So for him to come back and at least provide some good minutes when some of these other guys are down is critical. But he's been here. He's been in these matchups numerous times. He's gone up against these Purdue bigs numerous times. He knows what he has to do. I think you're going to see him step up, and I think that's going to be critical in order for Indiana to have a shot in at least slowing down a guy like Zach Edey, who most likely is going to get his 20 and 10. It just comes down to how efficiently he's going to get those 20 and 10, and how many times you're going to force him to pass out of that double team and either try to repost or force one of those outside perimeter players to create off a dribble or knock down an outside shot.